It's important to make the right decisions, like when to go for it on fourth down, or when to kick the field goal or go for the touchdown. It's also important to make the right insurance decisions too. That's why my office, Trey McAdams State Farm, is here to help you select the right protection at the right price. Our office will make sure you understand your State Farm coverages so you'll know what to expect when the unexpected happens. With Trey McAdams State Farm, it's easy to make the right call. When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Proud sponsor of the Tennessee Vols.
Senior Day could not have gone any better than it did for the Vols. A 56-0 win over UTEP. Quite the send-off for the seniors. A nice solid win for what could be the last home game of just the regular season. And we'll get to that a little bit later in the show. Paige Dauer, Jimmy Hyams. I mean, it really is this senior group that has helped, as Josh Heupel said, really put Tennessee back on the mark, put them back, kind of in conversation, because he mentioned, the outside noise when he first got here is completely different than what it is now. And part of that is a true testament to guys like Cooper Mays and Amari Thomas, who stayed through the change and the hiring of Josh Heupel to see where it is today.
When Heupel got here, Tennessee was irrelevant.
Yeah.
They were 3-7. They had NCAA cloud hanging over them. They had all kind of punishment coming their way. They had a mass exodus. A number of players left the program. But it was Cooper Mays, Amari Thomas, and even Cade Mays, Cooper's brother, that talked a lot of these players into staying. And they have helped set the foundation in making Tennessee relevant again. And Cooper Mays even talked about the struggles of the transition and how emotional today was, how emotional the Vol Walk was. Bru McCoy talked about signing autographs and taking pictures the first time he's done that on the Vol Walk. So this was a big deal for them, and they do understand that they have put Tennessee back in position of being a top 25, even a top 10 team again.
Yeah, and you had a great conversation with Cooper Mays a couple of months ago on the Rewind, and I'll link that here because he talked in great detail about the reasoning to stay here. And it was kind of similar to Amari Thomas. He said when he was making his transition or deciding what college he wanted to play at, he saw Tennessee as a program on the rise. That's going to be a culture with good people, and that is exactly what this program has turned into. We even talked to the other defensive players after the game, and they highlight just how much of a leader Amari Thomas is and how having guys like that helps bring in other guys. You think about the recruiting cycle. Josh Heupel will always say, we can be on the road as much as we can, but it's the players that are already in our locker room that essentially seal the deal on these new recruits to continue what they've built.
At Wallace Real Estate, trust is more than just a word. It's been our foundation since 1936. Whether you seek backyard adventures or a quiet spot for your morning coffee, we understand what makes a house a home. Our agents are here to simplify your home journey and to lead you through the process, whether buying or selling. With Wallace Real Estate, you're getting more than guidance. You're gaining a local partner dedicated to bringing your dreams to life. Start your real estate journey at wallacetn.com.
Well, you mentioned Amari Thomas. He told me a while back that when he ended up signing with Tennessee, some of his teammates in Memphis said, "Why are you going there? That's a dog program." And then after Tennessee beat Clemson in the Orange Bowl a couple of years ago, he called them while he was on the field. He called them to dig him about what Tennessee was doing. And then, of course, he hadn't had to make too many other phone calls like that, given where Tennessee is right now. But they're sitting there with a 9-2 record, a top 10 team. Amari Thomas has meant a lot to this program. So many different seniors that have stayed around to be a part of this. And while it is Senior Day, there might be a couple of them that actually come back next year. We'll find out about some of their decisions. But this has been a group that has stayed together, stuck together, and they mentioned that how it's easy to trust and to play for Josh Heupel. So Josh Heupel's had a lot to do with this turnaround as well.
Yeah, and it's a great time, of course, to be on Rocky Top, even, in recent years from like the 2014-15 seasons. I mean, even its recent past, this team was almost unrecognizable to what it was just a few years ago. And a part of that is also this Tennessee defense has a resurgence. That is certainly coming back with the help, of course, with players like Bru McCoy, the DB for Tennessee. He had another great game today, and this game was almost tailor-made for Bru McCoy, from the PBUs and then the interception, and just how locked down again for the 10th consecutive time he was in his position, really hardly even giving up receptions.
He has been such a great addition from the transfer portal, and nobody knew he was going to be this good, but he's been outstanding. And even in the spring, some of the players started bragging about how good he was and what an impact he could make with this group, and he has certainly done that. I also think that he and some other defensive players felt like they needed to make amends for that Georgia game. They didn't play well against Georgia. So, and I know that UTEP's not very good, but it's still hard to pitch a shutout nowadays. And I think they were very proud of pitching a shutout against the Miners and getting that done in the last regular season game at Neyland Stadium. There could be more to come. We'll talk about that later.
Yes, we will. Because that was also nice is that, you know, their quarterback for UTEP, he was not an easy guy to bring down. He scrambled a ton, he rolled out plenty, but to see guys like, you know, Jason Jenkins or Joshua Josephs also get in on it, make some really solid plays. I know Jeremiah T-Lander was close on a couple, but just how the whole defense really was connected and in sync for most part of this game, which we've not really seen for the last couple of weeks.
Well, and UTEP went into their bag of tricks. They were running all kind of stuff. They were running lateral passes down the field and just a bunch of different formations. And they caught Tennessee on a few plays, but not that many. But I thought Tennessee reacted well to it. It's also interesting that UTEP's coach, Scotty Waldron, was at Austin Peay the previous year, and they played Tennessee to a 30-13 game. 11 of those players from Austin Peay are now at UTEP. And in fact, their quarterback, their leading rusher, and 3 of their top receivers had played at Austin Peay a year ago. But I thought Tennessee responded well to all the tricks and different things that Austin Peay threw at them. So another really solid performance by this Tennessee defense.
And it shows that, hey, we can still rely on our defense. They'll show up, and regardless of the opponent, and it might seem like, oh yeah, they should have a pitch or a shutout against UTEP, but it's also like really hard sometimes to get up against teams that you might view as far inferior. We see it plenty of times. I mean, even early in the game with Georgia and UMass. I mean, UMass did get a couple of touchdowns on Georgia, so it's kind of on the flip side. Like, yeah, it might be lesser opponent, but sometimes it's even harder to get up for those games when you know it's going to be a mismatch.
Well, UMass scored 21 points on Georgia. Yeah, so you're right about that. So, but I thought Tennessee's defense came out and they played really well. Played a lot better than the offense did at the start of the game, but the defense did do its job and held UTEP to a little over 200 yards, I think it was. Yeah. So a very solid performance by the defense. And they wanted to pitch that shutout. They did not want to give up any points late in that fourth quarter. They didn't want to give up any garbage points to the Miners.
Yeah, absolutely not. And that brings us to our third thing to know for sure. Of course, the slow start offensively for Tennessee, which has continued to plague this team, except for a couple of times this season, and really only like once or twice in conference play. And it was another 0-0 on the scoreboard through the first quarter. So in the first quarter, Tennessee only had 2 first downs. Of course, their drive at the end of the first quarter continued into the start of the second quarter, which they got a nice touchdown to, I believe it was Bru McCoy on that one. And they had, 4 first downs to even start that. So in that first drive in the second quarter, they had more first downs than they did in the entire first quarter.
Well, Nico didn't start very well. No. He was 2 out of 6 or 14 yards. After that, after a slow start, and he even mentioned on the first play, he missed what should have been a touchdown pass. But after the 2 for 6 start, he ended up 11 out of 12 for about 143 yards. And Tennessee, after being scoreless in that first quarter, got 28 in the second quarter. And by then you knew it was going to be Tennessee's game. Then it was like, okay, what's the margin going to be? But then they finally got clicking, had another good quarter. The third quarter was also good for Tennessee before they turned it over to the backups.
And what was really encouraging too is when you kind of look ahead with this program, not only was it a career day for Bru McCoy, of course he had those 2 touchdown receptions, and it was really nice because when he had his first one in the left corner pylon, he's like, oh, I had to run over to the family section to make sure my mom saw, because he's like, I promised my mom I was going to get in the end zone, so he had to make sure to do that. But when you look at kind of how this program will continue to develop, seeing guys like Peyton Lewis run really hard and physical in this game and get a touchdown as well is a really encouraging sign, because you just look at how Tennessee, everyone talks about Tennessee wanting to be this pass-heavy offense. Josh Heupel loves to run the football. So to have more than one guy, granted Dylan Sampson's everything you want in a running back, but to have another option is really important for this program to continue to do what Heupel really believes is their identity.
Yeah, they lead the SEC in rushing, or they have. So they do a great job. And it's pretty simple. If they have the numbers advantage again when they're running the football, they will run it because they try to spread the field. If you spread the field, they're going to run it on you. If you load the box, they're going to throw it. And it's a pretty simple formula that's worked for them. One way to stop it is that your athletes are a whole lot better than Tennessee's, and there aren't many teams that can say that right now. But I thought it was, after a slow start, a good performance by them. You mentioned getting Bru McCoy involved with it. Squirrel White had a touchdown catch as well.
Yes.
So I thought that the offense, and again, it's an inferior opponent, but those middle two quarters, the second and third quarters, Tennessee's offense was perking.
One thing I also liked too was Mike Matthews. I know we all talk about the young wide receiver. He had a really nice catch in this game.
Yeah.
Could have had a couple of more if they didn't have a hand in it to break up the pass. But I think his ceiling is incredibly high, and I think he's another player to be really excited about.
Yeah, I think so too. And he was a 5-star receiver. Was slowed by some injuries in camp and earlier this season, but I think he's a guy that has the potential to be a big-time receiver at Tennessee.
Yes, and something we've been teasing all show, the fourth thing that we definitely need to talk about, those playoff implications. You and I talked about it the other week, and kind of just maybe the parity or a little bit of chaos that needs to happen while Tennessee continues to take care advantage so that they can be a playoff contending team, because right now they are the first team out. But after what happened on Saturday, that might change a little bit with Ole Miss losing to Florida to start, which was a bit of a shock, a huge upset that Florida was able to get at home.
It was, and then after that, you got Ohio State blowing at Indiana.
Yes.
Those were two of the things that Tennessee needed to happen. And so right now, although it's hard to predict what the selection committee is going to do, right now it looks like if Tennessee takes care of business and beats Vanderbilt, they got a great shot of being in the 12-team playoff. It was funny in the press conference afterward. So Coach Heupel was asked, "Do you know about results of other games?" And he was like, "Oh no, what happened?"
Yeah.
Then the players were asked the same thing, and at least Bru McCoy fessed up and said, "Yeah, I know." Now,
He couldn't hold in the smile that he
yeah,
did.
he could not. He could not hold that smile back. And I do think there might have been some other players that did not know. But the fact is, to me, the path has been cleared for Tennessee to take advantage of beat Vanderbilt. They got the breaks they needed. Another couple of things need to happen. The ACC and the Big 12, if they only get one team in the college football playoff, that helps open the door for Tennessee. Hey, if Notre Dame loses to either Army or Southern Cal, that would open the door. There are a lot of things. Look, today was a great day for Tennessee, not just beating UTEP, but also as far as the college football playoff picture. And we heard McCoy talk about, Bru McCoy, say afterward that, last game in Neyland Stadium, but might have one more. Well, if they're seeded between 5 and 8, they could host a game. Now, that's a bit of a stretch.
Wishful thinking,
to get to that level. But at least Tennessee right now back in the thick of the college football playoff conversation.
And kind of what I liked about that exchange too, when the players were asked about the playoff implications, of course, sitting next to Bru McCoy was Cooper Mays, whoever is doing his media training for him has done a fantastic job, because when he was responding to the question of, oh, Indiana lost really bad and then Ole Miss lost as well, and he's just like, well, if what you're saying is true, like, so I was looking at the final, I don't like, it's pretty much as clear as it gets. So his media training is fantastic, and it kind of just highlights the leader that he is, and just, kind of the, again, the leader. And Nico Imaliaba had a lot of kind things to say about both of them as well. So as far as just how today went, or how Saturday went for Tennessee football, probably couldn't have gone any better than it did, especially a nice send-off in the regular season for the seniors, and then hopefully a 5-8 seeding happens, and then maybe they're back home, and we shall see. But as always, thank you all so much for watching. We talked about Cooper Mays on the Rewind. I will link that here because that was such a great conversation, Jimmy, with you and Cooper Mays. So we will certainly have that linked here so you guys can enjoy that maybe during the Thanksgiving holiday as well. But until then, we will talk to you all on Monday.